Hello, everybody, and welcome to Secret Hopper Success Stories. My name is Andrew Copeland, and today I'm excited to be joined by two breweries that we're lucky to work with. We're going to discuss how they use Secret Hopper data to maximize the taproom experience for both guests and staff. So, in 2026, the taproom is about more than just great beer. That is obviously a must. It's the reason we all got into it. But the taproom experience has evolved from food to events to non-alcoholic beverages to finding ways to maintain the attention of everyone from the beer nerd like many of us today to the children they're bringing along with them. Running a taproom is complicated, and we are here to help. When working with Secret Hopper, we provide our brewery partners with comprehensive reporting, including feedback from 4 unique taproom visits, covering 30 plus data points per visit. These data points track the entire guest experience, from arrival to departure across different days, times, and levels of busyness to give you a full view of your taproom performance. Something I'm proud of about Secret Hopper, it pays for itself as the sales generated from the visits exceed the business's cost, but it gives you the data you are looking for to be more successful. So our brewery partners here today, I'm so excited for you to meet them. So Victoria, you are to the right of me. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll dive deeper shortly.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Andrew. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Victoria Howell. I am an owner-operator for Momac Brewing Company and the Director of Operations for Nansemond Brewing Station out of Suffolk, Virginia.
Awesome, Victoria. I don't know if you know, but I visited Momac a few weeks ago and had some fantastic beers.
Thank you so much.
Collin, it's been a little bit since I visited Seven Sun, but I did visit passing through probably like 2018. You were open in 2018, right?
Yeah, we were open. Collin Castore, Seventh Sun Brewing here. Opened Seventh Sun in 2013. We got an expansion built onto that in 2018 and also opened up Antiques on High, which is a sour wild cocktail kind of place, different part of Columbus. Then we have Getaway Brewing, which opened in 2021 in the Dublin suburb. And we also have a beer and wine carry out called the Barrel and Bottle, which operates in our city's kind of North Market, shared public market area. And we started a line of THC beverages recently. So
we'll need a whole nother conversation to talk about how you balance all of those brands.
It takes a little bit of juggling here and there.
It seems like you have a good team, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But Collin, because you've got Seventh Sun Brewing as the name attached to you right now, can you kind of tell us what we experienced when we first walk into Seventh Sun Taproom?
So Seventh Sun, when you first walk in, there's the patio to the right. We have 3 fire pits there, depending on the season, and some kind of traditional bar beer garden tables. Then walking in, there's a few more bar and beer garden tables, L-shaped bar, sitting area off to the left with couches and lights, kind of like living room feel. And sometimes you will see our mascot cat trooping around in there as well.
Like a full mascot costume?
He does not wear a costume, but he definitely gets around the tap room.
And because I'm curious, is it you? Are you the cat?
I'm not the cat. The cat is an assistant manager. We got him a few months after we opened. He's our all-natural pest control and also unofficial mascot. And he's 13 years old now. He's a cancer survivor, and he helped raise some money for cancer. And he's a good guy.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. Now, Victoria, at Momac, I don't believe I've seen a mascot, but maybe you need one. But tell us what it's like when you first walk into the taproom.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are located in a shopping center, right? So plenty of parking. So you come in, total open layout, right? So there's a bunch of tables and chairs. We have an L-shaped bar. All of our artwork and our menus are hand-drawn by some really creative staff members that we have. So it's just open, right? It's just open. You can see everything. We do have a private event space that we have that people can run out for events. And then there's a wall of windows. So if you wanted to check out what's happening in the brew house, you're more than welcome to do so. Sometimes our brewer's in there. If you knock on the door, he'll give you a tour.
Well, awesome, Victoria. Well, I'm glad both of you are here today. So when we launched Secret Hopper in 2017, there was, let's say, 6,000 breweries. Now we're closer to that 10,000 mark. And as we all know, the industry has changed quite a bit. a lot of the things that I'm really passionate about, education, engagement, those are things we've been talking about at Secret Hopper for years, but I actually really wasn't using the word hospitality for a long time, despite a lot of the concepts falling under that umbrella. So I'm curious for both of you, when did the word hospitality become a more important part of your business? And Victoria, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Yeah, sure. I think it really clicked to us after COVID, right? So everybody was, experiencing customer service. Everything was kind of transactional. And then when everybody stayed home for, the year plus and came back out, we were expecting something different. And so with that, we realized that hospitality is what gets people to keep coming back. It's more than just serving people, right? It's about hosting them. So, I stopped thinking about the tasting rooms as transactional, and we started thinking about them more as your living room and what people were wanting to experience. It's more about focusing on the people and the feeling that they get when they come there, being seen, heard, recognized, and remembered. So to us, we want them to feel like they're a part of something and not just a customer.
So if I were to ask just a random guest leaving one of your tap rooms why they come to the business, what would they say?
They know us, right? I'm walking up through the parking lot and all of a sudden my beer is already ready for me. They remember my birthday and an anniversary. They know my name after one visit.
Those personal relationships, I love it. So Collin, how about you? When did it become more the hospitality business versus just the beer business?
So I can't remember exactly when this happened, but it was probably around 18. There's a restaurant group here in town, Cameron Mitchell Group. And Cameron's done really well. He runs like Ocean Club, and he probably has like 10 different individual concepts, which is really interesting. But he wrote a book also called like Yes is the Answer, What's the Question kind of thing. But he's really known for his hospitality. And I got to join kind of a working group that he had with younger operators around town. And it just kind of instilled in me that hospitality is his number one thing. It's what they kind of preach to all of their team members. And it really helped me see the importance of that. And then the areas that we have all our places in are also kind of like the districts where there's a lot of dining and bar choices. So it's always been one of those things like what's actually going to differentiate us. Like we all serve beer. A lot of them even serve our beer. There's lots of places that have nice atmospheres. It's just the people. It's and we kind of put it to our staff like, hey, we're lining this up for you. We're giving you a great looking place. We're giving you tasty beers. And then if you can make that connection somehow, then people are going to really love it.
I definitely need to check out that book.
It's a cool book, actually. He's an interesting guy, and they've done a great job of like, he gets some shit around town about people are like, oh, there's another Cameron Mitchell, because he literally has like 10 restaurants in town here. But at the same time, everybody, when they have like an anniversary or their parents come to town or whatever, like it's so reliable and it's so like, and the food's always like pretty top notch, if not like the most inventive at all the places. But he knocks it out of the park. He does well.
I like what you just said about when someone comes from out of town or anniversary, that's the place you go. I mean, that's the place you know is going to be consistent on all the levels. And really, when you have only one shot to be someone's choice, that's what you want to be.
For sure.
So, Collin, for you, as your business has evolved, you added more brands. When did adding in taproom data to your toolkit become something you wanted to have? And like, why is it important to you?
I guess we always kind of wanted to have it, and we didn't figure out a good way to get it. I forget how we ran into each other, but we were just saying this on the pre-call, but it was kind of, I feel like it was dumb luck. We came across this and I'm like, oh, this would be a cool thing to try out or whatever. But it's some of the only like actionable real-time-ish data we can really use in some of these customer service situations, because we have cameras at all the places, but it's mainly for liability issues. It's not really because we're people who sit and watch cameras and listen to transactions all the time. Like it would just drive us completely bonkers crazy. So it's just good to have that outside unbiased or relatively unbiased opinion coming in.
Definitely.
No, Victoria, how about you?
Yeah. I think we all think that our business, is doing great and our staff, follow all the training points, right? And nobody makes a mistake. And, when we train, we're like, okay, well, we're great. We don't have to worry about anything else. But like personal feelings, right, between like management, ownership, and how we're doing can be misleading. So we really appreciate the data because it shows us where we can improve and it shows us where we're excelling, right? So it gives me actionable data points so that I can sit down with the staff and I can be like, this is where we're doing really, really well, and give the kudos that they need. And then it allows me to see, hey, we're kind of missing the spot on this. How can we go in? How can I retrain? How can we have this conversation? And, make sure that now becomes part of our day-to-day, actions and conversations with our customers.
Thanks, Victoria. So Collin, I hate to do this while I'm on a call, but I actually just looked through my email to see when we first connected. And we actually sent you a complimentary report in literally July of 2018, which feels like forever ago. So
Yeah.
It goes way back. And looking at the taproom experience, we're asking our teams to do so many things: greet the guests, offer recommendations, thank them when they leave, encourage to-go beer. Collin, for you at all your tap rooms, is there one or a couple of aspects of the taproom experience that you really put greater emphasis on for your team?
I think it's just the engagement piece. If they miss the to-goes, we kind of continually harp on that because for some odd reason we can only kind of land in the 50-ish% on that.
It's higher than most.
Yeah. But the one we really care about is engagement. And we do kind of give them that script about like, hey, how you doing? Have you been to Seventh Son before? Tried our beers? Like just some conversation starters and everything. But we really encourage people to just like, if you want to use a script, that's great. If you want to figure out your own thing, that's great. But how do you get to that engagement level? And the only other thing that we started to harp on with the kids these days is that nobody wants to introduce themselves. And we had to really like make it a point to say like, hey, that matters. It's an easy thing. It makes people feel much more comfortable. And even if you don't want to use your own name, use somebody's name and just introduce yourself. use a made up, use a nickname if you need to. But
I mean, the simple act of giving someone your name is going to mean they're more likely to share more with you. And it just opens the doors to deeper conversations. And that's why we come to taprooms. That's why I come to taprooms. This is what I love about the places that you all have created.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Victoria, how about you? What do you really focus on with the team at Momac and Nansman? Is there a certain area that you're just passionate about them doing as part of the taproom experience?
Yeah, I mean, engagement is always key to us, right? And it's building those relationships and creating that, I want to come back feeling in our customers. But unlike Collin, right? So the area that I've noticed with my staff where we're not excelling at, which we're trying to do better at, is offering flights and offering beer to go and trying to get those additional upsells, right? So the data for us has shown like my staff is extremely attentive, right? Like they're building those relationships. They have that engagement. We're introducing ourselves. What we're not doing necessarily all the time is we're not asking those follow-up questions and trying to get the upsell. And it's easy, right? Like once you get it and you nail it, it is totally seamless and can be added into any conversation that you have with somebody. It's as simple as noticing like, hey, I saw that you liked a couple of those beers. Did you know that we offer 6-packs to go? And it can just really be a part of that, and it doesn't have to feel pushy. So yeah.
Now, both of you have mentioned engagement pretty much at the level I mentioned engagement because that's what it's all about. But engagement covers all of these little things. So as we talk about greeting yourself, the recommendations, the flights, the to-go beer, you can't just tell your team to do all of those things and expect the results overnight. I imagine you're probably focusing on like certain metrics. And for you, Victoria, I was looking at your reports for the past few months over at Momac, and your team is getting better at encouraging flights. Like the data is literally showing an upward trajectory to do that. And you mentioned you like doing that. And the data shows that guests spend, I believe, 25% more when you ask the question, do you want to begin with a flight?
Right.
So my question for you is, how are you getting your team to actually do that and ask those questions?
We're one of those breweries that, we don't care if somebody wants a sample, right? Like we'll happily give you samples, but at the end of the day, I don't want to give you necessarily 6 samples. So, when we see that somebody's really having a hard time between both breweries, I have 28 beers on tap and they're all different. Nothing's ever the same. So I can understand that it's kind of daunting when you're looking at the board and you're not entirely sure what you want. So, if you want a sampler or two and you know that you really like hazy IPAs, you want to try some, awesome. If you're not sure, then we take that conversation rather than giving all of the samples. We're like, hey, if you'd like, we can offer you a flight. We do flights of 4, flights of 8, kind of get you started on that path. And then, we can do a follow-up pint after that.
So I had a flight of 4 last time I was there. If I had known you had flights of 8, I would have totally gotten one of those.
Yeah.
So, Collin, I was looking back through some of your reports as well at the Seven Sun location. Mid 2025, there was a few comments about lower engagement, greetings taking a little less conversation, and actually some inconsistency between some of the floors in your facility. But by November and December, the reviews were more consistently noting quicker greetings, active conversations, tab suggestions, follow-ups after someone got their first pint. And they were actually calling out specific bartenders by name for doing a good job. Like, can you share an example of receiving that feedback and how it led to a positive change?
I think the biggest thing we've noticed from these is rather than we have kind of quarterly or seasonal employee meetings, and we have a group, a chat app, Slack kind of thing, Ring Central, that we can talk to people on. But when these reports come through and there's something negative, rather than giving the whole staff, hey, by the way, we all need to focus on being nicer people, we just immediately address it specifically with the person about the incident. And at the same time too, we have all the hopper reports so people can see it if they want to. And we encourage that for anybody who had a bad one. We show them the whole report and just sit down and hey, here's where you missed the ball. Was something going on that day? Was what was going on with it? But then we also reward good reports. So if we get high engagement and you said your name, you get a $50 bonus if you're one of the people who was shopped. And even for the barbacks and stuff, we do a reward of were the bathroom's clean and was all the glassware picked up and things like that. If they get consistent marks on that, they get $20, I think. But a little reward. But we try and normalize the reports as we're not spying on you. This is just a part of what we do. And then we both reward and kind of immediately address the behavior. And sometimes it's with an old staff member who is just a little bit jaded or having a bad day or something. Sometimes it's with someone new and they're genuinely oh, we didn't realize you guys took this seriously or blah, blah, or this could happen or something like that. But it's just address it immediately and have a open conversation about it, I guess.
So we've been working together for quite some time now, but when you first started receiving the Secret Hopper reports, how did you get your team on board? I mean, you talk about it now as you've normalized it, they get excited for it, but early on, what did you do to say, hey, this is actually a good thing. It's going to help you make more money, or what was that approach like?
Money was definitely a little part of it. Hey, if we hit these things, if we get to-go beer, you're going to get tipped on to-go beer also. If they get a flight, you're going to get tipped on that flight also, and that's more money than pints and whatever. So that's a part of it. There's a little resistance at first, but just kind of telling people, getting people to believe that we're not doing this because we don't trust you. We're just doing this because it's natural when you have 5,000 interactions over the course of a month, it's natural that a few of them aren't going to be up to par. They're going to be worth talking about or whatever.
And the industry's challenging right now. We're trying to get as many dollars as we can, especially in our tap rooms. And it's these little tips and tricks and things you can just change about the experience that can really make a big difference. Although they might seem so minute, just something as simple as encouraging that flight, encouraging someone to give their name. They really do help to increase the tab size.
Yep.
So Victoria, on your end, talk to me a little bit about how you got the team on board at both facilities about using data to make everybody's day better.
Yeah, so the first month I didn't really tell anybody that we were doing it, right? I just kind of let it happen because I wanted to get genuine feedback as how they were doing day to day. So we do a staff meeting once a month. So the first Saturday of every month, I get everybody in. And then the highlight, which most of my staff members will tell you, is that we go over the secret shoppers. Now, because we have 2 different locations, we'll go over it and I'll say, this was at Momac, this was at Nansemond. I don't give them any other information about that. And when I read the reports to them, we take out the identifying factors initially. And so then everybody wants to guess, like, who were they talking about? Who was this person? And for the most part, right, they're extremely positive reviews. I think we've had one that wasn't so wonderful. When that happened, I took the staff member aside. We talked about it. She was having a rough day. And, it wasn't personal. That wasn't like her normal standard, right? So that kind of opens our eyes to that. But the staff love it. We have a thing that if they get an average of 85 and above, I take them to a hockey game. So we're gonna close the brewery, and we have.
Sounds like it benefits you maybe a little bit more than your staff, but
it does. But they're all into it, right? Because you never know who's going to be secret shopped, right? And so if we all have the mindset, like, hey, every single person who comes through our doors has the potential to be one, like, I'm always going to be at the top of my game, is kind of like what we feel. So if we get the average scores, then, they all collectively as a team get rewarded, because we're all putting in the effort.
We kind of do that at our staff meetings. We do that, two good ones and two bad ones from each location. And it's a mix of people at the things. We take out the identifying factors, but it's really interesting to see how, like, one of our spaces, Antiques on High, is a little, I don't want to say classier. We think of it like a classy grandpa's basement in a way, but people tend to.
You've got the living room, you've got grandpa's basement. Like, does every location have that weird family room vibe?
It can be, maybe it does. But it can be, people can think it's higher end or more cocktail focused sometimes, or intimidated by it. And what we see in that is and it kind of helps us to emphasize it to the staff, is like, here's this person who got good engagement and they thought this was the coolest place in the world that they found, and they had awesome cocktails and awesome beers, and it's so cool and whatever. And then you get the same person, they didn't get engagement, and they're like, yeah, I think this place is pretentious and I'm just not really feeling it. And we're like, this was the exact same place, same kind of age range, experience, even day of the week sometimes. And you can say, like, here's the difference between what good engagement does to it and what just being standoffish does to it.
I mean, you nailed that. And there's so many factors that go into the overall experience. And one of them these days really is like the vibe. And Collin, on one of your reports, we asked the question, was music playing at an appropriate level? It sounds so simple, right? But how does something like music or lighting, how does it impact the guest experience? And have you received feedback over the years on, like, the environmental and atmosphere factors that you've actually made adjustments because of?
I still hate LED bulbs, even though I shouldn't. I still like incandescent light on dimmers is just kind of my favorite thing. And I still have a stash of old incandescent bulbs that I use sometimes at my house. And but so yes, lighting and everything is very important. And there's a handful of bars around town that, like, I love the bars, but it's just so bright in there. Antiques has gotten knocked on being potentially too dark, but it's also gotten lots of, like, love the dark, cozy atmosphere and fireside kind of things. So we take that in hand, but that and the music levels, we actually pay our licensing fees right now. We're still doing that just because we really want to have control over what we're playing, or the most control over what we're playing. And we have kind of a local DJ buddy who did a different, super long playlist, for several thousand song playlist for each place that we kind of cycle through, depending on the mood. So, and then for different nights, like we do a tiki night at one of the places and we have a playlist for that. And I think music and lights for sure. And it's a pretty easy find if somebody's like, hey, we came in at 4:00 and there was emo blasting from whatever. And we're like, oh, so-and-so probably opened up and had their own music on and forgot to put on the playlist or something like that. And we haven't had too many of those, but I think there's probably been one or two in the past where people kind of scratching their heads, like, didn't seem like a death metal place, but you never know.
That's so interesting. You probably laughed a little bit when you were reading that, like, wait, what was playing?
Yeah. There's definitely been times.
So, like, Victoria, for you, is there any feedback that you've received that surprised you in any way? And, like, what did you do?
I think the thing that I got out of doing was paper menus, right? So we have the menu on the board, we have the menu on the website, we have all of our descriptions on our website. And I kind of went more or less to like QR codes for a while. And I was like, yeah, like if you want to see the menu, just scan this, like all the descriptions are there. A lot of the feedback that we've received though is like, we want paper menus. We want to be able to sit there and look at them and read them, and get the flavor profiles and everything like that. So we started working with beer menus again, so that we can have that at both locations. And, once you get everything loaded, it's super easy to have. But to me, like I can go in any place and I'm like, yeah, like, I tend to judge things off of bottles and, artwork, so I don't necessarily need descriptions when I'm purchasing. But a lot of people like to have that. So that was one of the things that really stood out to me was, I wish I had a paper menu. I wish I could sit here and read the descriptions. I wish I knew this, and I was like, okay, if that's really important to the customer, then that's something that I need to focus on and to bring back.
So I think it helps people put their phones down too.
Yeah.
Which is always a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of having some sort of physical menu, especially like Collin, if you and I someday are hanging out at a bar together, we're going to talk about that menu together. What are you going to have next? What do you like about it? It becomes our source of information for that establishment. And the data actually shows that guests spend more money when a physical menu is one of their many types of menus. And it's kind of funny, but these days you can't just have one type of menu. You can't just have the wall menu. You can't just have the QR code, the phone menu. You got to have all of the above because we're having so many different kinds of guests come to our businesses. We got to find ways to make sure we're getting information to each of them.
Yeah.
So, Collin, outside of, emo playing or death metal playing when it wasn't supposed to be, is there any other surprising information that you received from the reports that you've made a change from or had to handle?
I think we improved our merch areas a little bit, just like and finally found a way that the pricing was that we didn't have to price every individual item all the time, but we finally found a board that people could see, which seems like a small thing, but it helps sell merch more. But yeah, I think improving the merch a little bit was probably one of the main things. And it's not something that you try and set up and try and make it nice, but it's just good to get another set of eyes on.
And from improving the merch area, did you track any increases in merchandise spending?
I'm sure we saw an increase, but across the three places and between employees taking T-shirts when they forget one at work and everything else, we still can't seem to get the proper revenue out of merch. But it's a relative wash, I guess.
You just need more shirts with a cat on it, which I'm sure you already have a billion.
Yeah, that could be.
Or the limited edition mascot head that anyone can buy.
Yeah, we put up a giant inflatable reindeer for Christmas this year on the roof of one of our places at 7th, and we were trying to figure out if we could get inflatables through the whole year for some different things, maybe like a cat inflatable.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So going to a tap room for the first time, I always love engaging with the team. For the both of you, you kind of mentioned some of the questions you ask, like, is this your first time visiting? Would you like to start with the flight? But is there a question you personally love your staff to engage and ask guests, or something you really train them to add as part of their repertoire when they're speaking to people? Or maybe it's an action, not just necessarily a certain question.
I don't know. I think sometimes, like, you can tell when somebody's coming there to celebrate something. And so, like, we're super thankful that they choose us to be a part of that celebration. Like, I've run out before when somebody's like, oh, yeah, it's his birthday. And I've, like, gone to the grocery store around the corner and come back with a small birthday cake and candles for the table. So, it's just fun. Like, we really appreciate it. We want to be the place that people come to celebrate things with. And if we notice it, we try our best to help them celebrate that on our side.
There's a little touches like that. I love that.
Yeah, our events. Oops.
That's not a cat. That's definitely not a cat.
Not the mascot.
No, there's actually so there's 3 dogs out back right now, and then this one inside. It's a bit of a zoo over here right now. Apologies.
You're all good, Collin. But like going back to like what you want your team to say or do, is there something you really encourage them to add in?
Just that have you the biggest, easiest one is, have you been here before? What kind of beers do you usually like to drink? Just those kinds of like basic conversation starters. And have you been here before? Almost always, if somebody's, especially if they're sitting at a bar, that'll lead into a conversation. Like either, no, my friend told me to come to this place and so, or yeah, I know somebody who's, or I live in the neighborhood, or whatever it may be. But just that little bit of conversation starter. And same kind of thing on events. Like all of our places have event spaces, and we do tons and tons of events now. So there's a little bit of training in that in terms of like making sure that the staff knows that an event's going on, who the point person's going to be for it, identify that person, whether they're running a tab or just buying drinks at the bar, like all those kinds of things. But just starting with that basic engagement. Have you been here before? Oh, you're here for the event. Cool.
Yeah, engagement goes a long way. And you both have mentioned, again, that checking that question of like, how would you rate the level of engagement is an important one for you. You both have also mentioned to-go beer as being something that's important. When you look at these monthly reports, is there a certain metric or data point that you really love to dive into? And how are you correlating that to see increases in spending in the tap rooms? Who wants to dive into that one first?
Well, I was just going to add, I also like hearing, it's the one at the end, like what would make this your go-to or any other thoughts kind of thing. Because there's been some good, it's not always an actionable data point, but there's definitely been some good thoughts from people about, hey, I really wish there was this or that, or this might be a good idea. And it's nice to hear some of the people who have regularly been doing the reports. I'll have a comment there of like, hey, I've been at Seventh Son 3 or 4 times for this, and every time they kill it, or the staff is always so engaging or something like that. So I think that's a good one to kind of go to kind of summarize the experience and see, because even sometimes when the scores in like the 70s, it can still be a really good experience. It was just one of those like, hey, they killed it, they were super nice, but it was Saturday, there was a line at the bar, so they didn't get to talk to me for 30 seconds and do this and do that. Like, and those ones are okay. But I think when going through the report, it's kind of about like figuring out what kind of a night it was, what the experience was, and then if there are actionable things from that report, or if it's just, hey, this was a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, it could let you prepare better for the next busy Saturday night or next event day that you have.
Yep, we've been trying to work on our dealing with lines and changing the service model a tiny bit at a couple of our places. So that's one that's kind of especially important right now.
If you ever want to specifically come on certain busy days, just let me know. We can try to arrange it.
Yeah.
No, Victoria, how about you? When you review the reports, is there a certain metric that you love, and how do you correlate it to any increases in spending?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones that I mainly focus on, right? It's, staff engagement. Was I greeted, with a smile? Did they make sure that they, followed up with me? Everything like that. I think the more engaged the staff is, the longer somebody wants to sit there, right? And so we've already kind of focused on like the beer to go aspect of it. But, I think the other part of it too is, we came there with my kids and we sat at a table. And so they weren't at the bar, right? So it wasn't super easy for the staff to be like, hey, how's everything going? Are you enjoying it? What are your thoughts? Whatever. But like my staff actually physically had to go to the table and check up on them, And so we definitely got a couple of reviews and they were like, yeah, it was super cool. Mom and dad date night out. We brought the kid. They were playing at the arcade games. But your staff made it a point to come over and check on us and have a conversation and like remembered certain aspects about the visit, and I think when we have that, we have those specific touches to it, they sit there longer, right? Because they want to have another beer, they want to share that. So that'll increase our sales. But I find that it also increases when it's asking like, how likely are you to return for your next visit? On those visits where you have high engagement, they're like 1 to 7 days. Or, we'll come within the next 30 days, but maybe it's a little bit further from where we live. So it can't necessarily be my go-to location, but they still had an amazing time. So
I'm in that boat. I wish I could go to Momac a little more frequently, but yeah. Tunnels, they separate us here.
They're awful. I know. I'm like, if we could just do like a day without the tunnel fees, like I'm sure business would increase.
Collin's like, what are you all talking about? Tunnels? We have a few that separate some of the cities. But okay. Victoria, you mentioned, kids in the tap room. Yes. You have a mini arcade, which my son loves. You do a bunch of really family-friendly events. So what are some specific things that you're doing to maximize the experience when they're there for the children?
Yeah. So we have pinball machines, we've got foosball, we've got Pac-Man, and, like one of those multi-cade games. I've got a ton of games behind the bar, that people can check out with an ID. You can bring it to your table. So maybe you want to play like Yahtzee or, a card game or something like that. But I also do like coloring pages. And so we'll change those out. We'll do coloring contests for the kids. So I'm really big on being family friendly. I know that there's a lot of controversy around that. I don't want the kids running and screaming around the tap room, right? Like sometimes that happens, but we'd prefer to create a super welcoming space where everybody can kind of enjoy themselves, but that the kids are entertained and maybe not necessarily on a tablet, right? So like us as parents, and I'm not a mom, but I'm an aunt, right? So like we want my niece to sit at the table with us. We want her to have fun, and be engaged, because the longer she's engaged, right, that means the more time that we, the adults, can sit there and have a beer and socialize and talk. So I've created sensory bags for children who maybe need, something a little bit different, so that those can get checked out at the bar. I do a lot of events for families. So one of the biggest events that I do annually, it's called Nooner's Eve. And so rather than having a countdown to midnight and staying up in late, I open the brewery at 10 a.m. I get breakfast trucks out here since we don't have a kitchen. And we do a countdown to noon, and we do a juice box toast. And they're free. All the kids get a juice box. So they can get it at any point during the day. If they want multiple, like that's fine. I get really fun bands in here. And then as we're striking noon, we can all come together as a community and as, like the families. And we do a big celebration, and then we don't have to worry about, the kids staying up till midnight and feeling like they missed out on something, and then dealing with the after effects of tired children. And it was something I wasn't expecting to be huge. The first year I did it, we opened doors at 9:45. Like I had people coming in and I wasn't ready to open yet. And I was like, okay, well, like, come on in, get a table, whatever. By 10:05, we were completely full. You couldn't find a seat. I have seating for 100 in the main tap room. So couldn't find a seat at 10:05. And it's just kind of been something that we were like, okay, well, we're just going to continue this. And how can I make it bigger? And
that's a really good idea.
Yeah. No, it's super awesome. We bring face painters in, and so the kids can be super fun and glittery and, whatever. No, it's super fun. And so I like to focus on that aspect of it because, at the end of the day, we all want to go out. We all want to enjoy ourselves. And, sometimes we have kids. So why not make something that, people feel welcome in coming to?
And that audience isn't able to come for the late night celebration. So you're giving them a reason. You're creating a time that would be otherwise probably very, very slow or not even in existence in your tap room, and making it really busy.
Yeah. When I tell you my Nooner's Eve event brings in more people than like Oktoberfest and St. Patrick's Day. Like it's wild. And every year I just see my sales just continuously grow. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this is the key event.
No, I love that you've created that.
Yeah.
We do kids stuff. We have placemats and crayons that we made custom for all the places. We used to do a kids day kind of quarterly, frequently. My kids, I have a 17-year-old and a 27, and they grew up in the brewery, so I always appreciated that. And then my business partner's kids are a little bit younger, but they're kind of going through that now. They're in their like 8 to 12 stages and such, but I have no idea. Like I kind of get why you might be offended by, hey, there's a toddler at 10 p.m. or something, but I have no idea why people care about, and it just has never been an issue at our places about like somebody, oh my God, there's kids here. Like it's just some people have their kids with them and some people don't, and it's fine.
You're finding ways to make the experience work for everyone, and that takes balance and it takes skill.
Yeah, and if anyone, it's kind of like pets. Like if anyone's an issue, if your dog's being a jerk, we tell the staff to walk up to him immediately and like, hey, your dog can't be a jerk again. If it does, you guys have to take off. You just address it when it happens.
Wearing my craft beer professionals hat, we recently hosted a workshop in New Orleans. And a few years ago, as both of you know, kids and tap rooms were a very, very controversial topic. I will say they're less controversial now, and we're already talked about them, and we haven't yelled at each other yet. But at this lunch, I was sitting with other tap room owners and managers from across the country, and we were just talking about not whether or not we should allow kids and families into our tap rooms, but they were talking about almost how to upsell to children. It almost sounds wrong to say, but it's like things like slushies, things like juice box. Oh, let's have a Nooner's Eve. Let's the activities you can do to attract that audience, because when you get the kids there, the parents get to safely hang out a little bit longer, and it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. Food too, same kind of thing. Like it just helps people stay longer, and having some options for the kids is great.
And Collin, as you've kind of grown your brand, you added a food option in Pizza Box. Like, what results have you seen by bringing in the food in-house, and how are you getting your team kind of on board with saying, hey, do you want a beer? But hey, you also should try this delicious pepperoni pizza. That's going to pair perfect. Like, how do you kind of take it to the next level?
We're still trying to get everyone on board with that at one of the location at the actually, it's kind of interesting. So the trailer location where it took the place of a food truck opened up first, and we're having more difficulty getting the staff to think of it as kind of the same entity there. At the other place, we converted our kind of back brewing area into the pizza kitchen. And that's really integrated really well. And the staff now realize, like, hey, if I sell $50 worth of food, I get tipped on that. Like, it's pretty easy for people to, okay, like the barbacks have more work to do running food now, but they're making more money. We also switched up at that location. It's the first place we had been only counter ordering at all of our places. And just recently, because of the food, we started offering the option for people to order from a QR code from the table also. Or if you're sitting at the bar, you can just order from the bartender still at any of the places. You don't have to use a QR code if you don't want to. But we're seeing more. You were talking about table touches earlier, Victoria, like getting the bartenders to actually leave behind the bar can be incredibly difficult. And we've always encouraged the barbacks to be kind of that friendly, smiling face, but the bartenders just have more experience and know more about things. So getting them to run out there with drinks and food and talk about the food and all of that has just been a little bit of a challenge, but I think it's going in the right direction now.
No, I think it's a great option, because at places where they don't have food, a guest might have 2 drinks and go to the next spot. Now you have the opportunity to capture their time.
Yeah, we've never been able to get past like a 2 or 3 drink check average at our places because we were always kind of the food truck place. And now we're actually seeing our check averages go up. I'm not sure if the food on its own technically makes money, but it's grown beverage sales for sure.
No,
like
I love that you have it.
About 10%.
No, that's so great to see. And I can't wait to visit in a few years when CBC comes up to the Columbus area. Now, we've dived into it a little bit about how you're sharing the data, but both of you have multiple locations that you're responsible for. How do you use it to create a healthy sense of competition across the tap rooms, really getting everybody to be the best they can be and great advocates for your brands?
Victoria?
Oh, thanks, Collin. No, I think everybody wants a little bit of friendly competition, right? And so while both businesses are totally separate entities and they both have their own identity, Momac is more lively and fun and energetic and open. Nansmond is very quaint and historical and cozy. And we see that there's a lot of difference in the type of clientele that we get at both, right? So like Momac drives more family and like young adults, and Nansmond has a little bit of an older crowd, right? And so it's kind of just one of those things that when we get the reports in and we look at them and we see there's still a lot of similarities in how we're dealing with them, right? So like the training is still the same, but sometimes like the needs of the customers are different. And so then you'll see like one thing's more important to somebody at Momac versus something that's more important to somebody at Nansmond. And so it's just tailoring all of our experiences and, making sure, because we have a lot of staff crossover. So when we hire to make sure that, if needed, like this may be your like primary home base, but, you're going to probably have to travel and fill in behind, at one location or another. And just making sure that like everybody's kind of on the same standard, right? So these are your expectations here. This is what's important here. But then just cross training and making sure that everybody's aware. Yeah, I would just say that, everybody wants friendly competition. But like at the end of the day, collectively, like they're still a team. And when, we're rewarding and when we're doing things, we're rewarding collectively as a team for both locations, even though they are separate, and not as one, right? So it's not like all the staff from OMAC gets to go to the hockey game. No, it's my expectations are that, both locations are going to get, a combined average. And once we collectively as a team get to that, then we all get rewarded as a team.
No, thank you for sharing that. Collin, how are you using the data to kind of create a little bit of healthy competition?
We haven't done we have a lot of crossover too between places. So we haven't done a like place first place thing. I think sometimes when it comes up, we'll just say like, hey, Getaway just always kills it or something. Like there's a little bit of that, but nothing specific. But that bonusing the high engagement and saying your name, that kind of goes across all the places. And that was our biggest kind of create a reward or create an incentive with it. We might try some different things though, in terms of the best place or the highest scoring location, something like that.
Now, let's talk a little bit about training. You've got the data, you share it with your team. Like, let's say there's something you want to improve on. I'll let you both kind of give that specific example, but let's just pretend it's to go beer. How are you sharing the data saying, hey, here's where we are. Here's what you can expect once you sell more to go beer. But how are you getting your team excited for? What does that training path look like at the meetings?
We role play.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so we all role play, and we'll go through fake scenarios, and it'll be natural and organic, and we'll get people behind the bar, and then we'll have conversations, and maybe I'll throw in different personality types, right? So maybe we have like a mom who's super distracted, and the kids are just pulling, and I'm really just trying to close my tab, right? Versus somebody who sat and lingered, and they're still engaging, and they want to chat with you, but you have a line at the door. Right. So we role play a lot. We have these conversations, and I'm like, hey, if you're uncomfortable, because sometimes, right, selling comes naturally to some people and sometimes it does not. But I think the biggest thing with us is just making it seem to the staff that they're not selling and that it's just a conversation, and that they don't have to be pushy, because the moment sometimes you bring sales into a conversation, especially with my younger generation staff, they clam up. And they get really nervous, and it's kind of interesting to watch them behind the bar. But as soon as you take the pressure out of it and you just say, hey, this is just a conversation. It's just you and me. Like, we're just going to get in a routine. This is going to be how it's going to go. Then they're okay with it. I sit at the end of the bar a lot and just kind of observe. And, we're not hitting every single person getting asked if they want to go beer, but it's definitely increasing, and sometimes it's just that natural thing of like also introducing yourself. So there's little things, right? It's progress, not perfection, is what I like to say. And so just so long as we can continue to see forward moving progress, we're happy.
Let's back up for a second. So you get them kind of engaging across the bar, but how do you get them to get down with role playing in the first place? Because I know sometimes there's resistance to that.
There is. It's we make it super fun, right? Like I'm one of those leaders there's not a lot of pressure for me, and this is part of it. This is your team. This is, who's there to support you. You work with them every day. You rotate in, you rotate out. So at the end of the day, honestly, like my staff is more of a family than a team. They all hang out with each other. They celebrate things together. And so for them to role play and to kind of do these things, it's not pulling teeth, right? That's just kind of the environment that we fostered. So for them to do it in a safe space, because that's what this is. This is a safe space for them to learn and to receive positive, feedback, and, like, here's where we can critique this, that, and the other. I don't really get a lot of resistance from them.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, I think just from talking about it, ever since we first started the reports, it's just kind of an expected thing. And we approach it as just like, hey, maybe you're not the most outgoing person in the world, but when you're here, you put on your outgoing, friendly face, and that's just what the job is. And if that's not, and we've had a few staff members, and actually Secret Hopper helped with this, that just over time, like, hey, we've had this talk so many times and it's just not natural for you. And we understand that. And maybe you should take more of a prep role than a forward facing role, or maybe you should go back to being a bar back rather than a bartender. But we promote a lot from within. So I think a lot of people kind of see that. And we always tell people the differentiating factor. It's not like how well you can pour a draft beer, because you can teach anyone to do that. And even the fancier mixology cocktail stuff that's on the menus at our places now, like that can just be taught. It's not a insane skill. The real skill is how you deal with people and how you make sure that nobody has a bad experience, even if they're being a jerk, how you kick out the drunk guy, how you engage with the person who's distracted on their phone. Like those are all the things we look for, whether it's at the bar back level or the bartender. If it's bar back level, that's what we'll notice, and that's what will get you promoted to being a bartender. And if it's at the bartender level, we see some of the older staff who are maybe not the most naturally outgoing, still even going kind of turning it on when they're supposed to, and then showing the new staff like, yeah, you just do this. It's part of it. It's not, again, I think there is some reticence about like being too selly or being fake or something like that. And people just telling people like, no, that's what your job is you're here to make sure everybody has a good time, and you're here to put on a smile when you're at work and have a good time yourself. And that's just part of the job.
That's such great insight there, Collin. Now, for the two of you, is there anything I haven't asked you in the realm of taproom data that you get really excited about, or something you're really proud of at your business that you would just like to share?
I don't necessarily think that, I'm big on numbers, and I'm big on, what's working, what's not working. And I think the thing that the reports allows me to do is it allows me to see from a fresh perspective, right? It allows me to look at it with new eyes and say, okay, this is what people are noticing. This is where we have growth opportunities, and this is where we're really, excelling. So I feel like for me, like the data that we're getting, it's, how to celebrate the wins and then tweak what needs to be changed.
No, I love that. Collin, is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to talk about?
No, I think that's a great point. It's just, it gets really hard after you're around these places all the time and you're around your people all the time. And it's hard to have that outside perspective, and you just need to continually do that, or else your places will end up looking shabby, and your staff will be not as engaged and not as pleasant as they should be. And we all have great places. So it's just a matter of staying on top of it and listening to that feedback.
It's easy to get everything to become a blur when you go to the same place every day, and it just becomes your workplace versus a place you're coming to experience as a customer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So final question, and Victoria, because you got to go first, Collin has to go first on this one. So for everyone out there listening, Kyle, what advice would you give to other taproom managers, owners out there about their relationship with taproom data?
Even if it's hard to read, make yourself read it. And don't take it personally. Like, just look at it as an opportunity to fix things, and that's all. Even it's one of those things that my son gets very frustrated very easily because he's 17, and I think, and I always try and instill in him, like, you genuinely do learn more from your failures sometimes. So you just you look at what needs to be fixed and you fix it. Whether that's a person or a merchandise display or a beer or anything.
Good advice there. Victoria, you?
Yeah. I mean, exactly what Collin said is, don't take it personally, right? Like, data is there to be taken seriously, not personally. It's not necessarily a judgment on your business. It's a direction, right? And so you need to use it to celebrate your wins. You need to look at it and how you can grow. And I know for some of us, like, reading these things and not taking it personally can be a little bit difficult, right? Especially when there's questions about, like, how's your social media? Does it influence? What do people think? Is your website regularly updated? Things like that, right? Because, like, I handle every single aspect except for brewing of our businesses for two very separate locations with two very separate identities. And so sometimes it can be a lot. And I'm not perfect. I'll tell you, like, right now, like, I'm not perfect. There's days that I don't post on social media. There's days that I don't update the website, and maybe there's a beer listed on my menu that I don't currently have on draft. So it's like one of those things. It's just be humble to any feedback that you get. Take it, move forward with it, realize what the customers want. And, again, you want to create better experiences, not perfect ones. We all have room for growth.
That is a great thought to end on. You two have been fantastic to hang out with today. Victoria, I know we're a few miles apart, so I know I'll see you soon. Collin, I cannot wait for that first time we get to have a beer together. It'll be almost a decade in the making, probably, when that actually happens.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about. Time really flies.
Crazy to think about. But this has been awesome talking taproom with you two. I appreciate it. So both, and you both, and for everybody listening. So Victoria, thanks again. Collin, thanks again. Everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you soon. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye.